Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rachelle Anne Miller YouTube channel. Today I'm featuring the Koala Christmas digital stamp in this really fresh Christmas card. I printed the digital stamp on Transodite Perfect coloring paper and I'm just going to use my Copic markers to color this adorable image. It's a really simple one featuring some lovely koalas. Also the tree, it just creates this fresh vibe. I went for really bright colors. You can go a bit darker and more classic in color choices, but I just wanted to show you how you also can create a fresh Christmas card. It depends where you live. Some people have snow when it's Christmas, and some people have these hot temperatures. So depending on where you are, you might want to create a fresh Christmas card instead of that deep red and dark green uh, on your card. So, color combinations as always are listed down below in the description box. You can easily retrieve all of the combinations that you might like. Also on the blog post, all links are down below in the description box for that. Now the pineapples, I'm just easily using 2 markers. Also it's a really fine image, so I'm not going to use several layers. These 2 layers are working perfectly. I'm using the E59 and E57, which are also 2 markers really close to each other, so that also helps with the transition with the colors here. So as I said, I'm going to use really bright green greens for this tree. I'm using the yellow-green 03 and 00, and I ended up also taking 23 because I just was not, well, it just wasn't visible enough, or there wasn't enough contrast, but I didn't want to overdo it either, so that's how I ended up with it. And I'm just following the lines here that Rachelle added to create a bit of contrast. And for the leaves and the grounding, I'm also using the same markers. I didn't want to overdo again. I love reusing colors, you know me. So I end up using exactly the same markers, really fresh as well, down below. Also, personally, I find adding grounding, I just find it really difficult. There is always a bit of scenery, so if you are not sure about adding grounding, I think that just the scenery with the digital stamp is already enough. You don't necessarily have to add colors, in my opinion, to the grounding, but from time to time I do. And so I'm trying to get outside of that comfort zone. I also just spread a bit of the color. I don't want to have it all lined up and be perfectly straight down below. I prefer having it a bit wonky and just natural going. So yeah. For the koalas, I decided to go with kind of a brown color. Normally I color them gray, but there are so many kinds of koalas with different colors. And with all of the green and stuff, I'm using really fresh colors. Using browns for the critters can make it a bit warmer, so that's something that I really intended to do to balance a bit things out. So that's why I used browns here. And then of course there is a tiny one and a bigger one. And I tend to color my biggest critters a bit darker than the small ones. It's just something that I tend to do. I really don't, well, I actually am not aware of it until the moment that I start coloring, that I again decided to go with the darker combination for the bigger one. But something that I do is also I just leave out the darkest marker for the tiny one, which ties everything together. The tiny one can definitely be a child of the bigger one. And so in this case, the big one is E37, E33, E53, and E51. For the small one, I am just leaving out the E37, and I have this completely different koala color, which ties in really great with the bigger one because it's the same kind of markers. But I think it's really handy this way. Also, you only need 4 markers and you'll have 2 combinations. I mean, great, no? So here, as you can see, I'm doing my second layer on the bigger one, and at the same time I'm using those markers for the tiny one, which is really handy. Also less time consuming because the cap is already off. Um, so that's what I'm doing here. And I'm just blending things out, making sure that I light the blend, depending on the paper that you're using, the markers, how thick you're putting your layers. You might need more or less layers than I do to get that blend that you want. So I'm almost done with the coloring. The card itself is going to be really simple. I'm going to die cut this with an A2 size die. For me, that's the basic rectangles by Mama Elephant. It's one of my, well, basic, literally, dies that I have and I use all the time whenever I need an A2 sized card, because I'm just really bad at trimming things myself to the right size. So I'm always using an A2 sized die, or just something with a lovely frame that is slightly smaller that I can add to my A2 sized card base. So I looked for a paper that was matching with my blue. I just have two blue elements, so that's why I wanted my sentiment to be in the same kind of blue. I ended up using the Oceanside cardstock by Concord 9th, and I die cut Christmas using the Oliver Alpha die by Hello Bluebird, and I'm going to add it underneath my scenery here. You can also add it on top or just on the side, depending on how big your image is in your card. There are several areas where you can add a sentiment if you want to. I'm die cutting the panel into that A2 sized panel, and then for the Christmas I am using my ruler here to have it straight. Then I'm taking some present seal and I'm going to line it up on my card base here. I'm just making sure that it is centered, and then I am going to trace the two lowest corners with a marker here to help me later on place it exactly how I intended here. So I'm going to use some liquid glue. I'm adding some dots. Try to not overdo it because it can ooze and then your present seal will get stuck as well, so that's not the idea. So here I'm just adding liquid glue using the Longfond glue tube, but there are many others that might just be perfect as well. And then I'm going to lift up the present seal and I'm going to drag it over that panel, making sure that those two corners are lining up, and then I will drop it, press it down so that it can get stuck, and then I'm going to remove the present seal later on once I'm sure that the liquid glue has glued my sentiment. So I'm peeling it off here, gray to the present seal. If you're living in Europe, I got it via Amazon, just in case, because I searched for it for a while, so that way you can find it as well. I just added the panel on top of my card base using some adhesive roller, and now I'm just adding some final details, some glossy accents to the noses, which is something really lovely to do. And then I'm adding some stickles. This is the Stardust stickles to the hearts on this card to just have a bit more glitter. It's a really simple card, but just by adding a few details like this, you can really lift it up if you want to. So that is my card for today, a really fresh Christmas card. It was so much fun to color and to create. I hope that it can inspire you. It's still early, but I'm always liking Christmas cards, so maybe you can see this as an excuse to start on your Christmas cards as well. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll be back soon with some more crafty inspiration. Bye!